What if I told you that meat is not the untouchable protein king most people have been conditioned to believe, and that some of the most protein-packed foods on the planet do not come from slaughterhouses at all, but from ponds, seeds, beans, fungi, and ancient crops that modern culture pushed to the sidelines? And what if I told you that by the time we get to number 10, you will see why one humble green food has been underestimated for far too long, while number 20 may completely change the way you think about strength, stamina, and human nutrition itself? Before we jump in, subscribe to the channel and stay with me all the way to the end, because this countdown is not just about protein. It is about reclaiming common sense, rediscovering forgotten wisdom, and exposing how convenience culture turned people away from foods that could actually nourish them on a deeper level. So let us begin, exactly in order, because every one of these 20 plant foods earns its place in this story. At number 1, chlorella. This is where the list opens, because chlorella does not merely challenge the idea that protein must come from meat, it practically shatters it. This freshwater green algae is tiny, almost microscopic, yet it can contain an astonishingly high percentage of protein by dry weight, often far beyond what people expect from any plant source. Ancient civilizations may not have called it chlorella in the modern scientific sense, but cultures around the world have long recognized that green waters and algae-rich environments held unusual vitality. Today, we know that chlorella is loaded with protein, chlorophyll, iron, and compounds that support cellular health. It also contains carotenoids and bioactive peptides that make it far more interesting than just another trendy powder. What makes chlorella so powerful is not only its protein density, but its ability to deliver that nourishment in an incredibly concentrated form. The modern world overlooked it because industrial food systems prefer foods that can be mass-marketed, flavored, packaged, and turned into addictive convenience products. Chlorella is the opposite. It feels ancient, raw, and almost too simple. That alone makes it suspicious to a culture that trusts a neon sports drink more than a green superfood born from nature. At number 2, black beans. This is one of the great ironies of modern eating. Black beans have fed civilizations for centuries. In Central and South America, they were treasured staples, not side dishes, not afterthoughts, but foundations of strength and survival. Empires were built on foods like this. Farmers, laborers, and warriors relied on legumes because they were sustaining, affordable, and deeply nourishing. Modern science now explains why. Black beans are rich in protein, fiber, folate, magnesium, and anthocyanins, those dark pigments with antioxidant power. They do not just help build tissue, they support satiety, blood sugar stability, and gut health. Meat may give protein, yes, but it does not come wrapped in fiber and plant compounds that work with the body instead of burdening it. Why did society overlook black beans? Because they were humble. They did not have luxury branding. They were called poor people's food for generations, even while they quietly outperformed many fashionable diets in keeping people full and functional. At number 3, hemp seeds. Few foods have been so misunderstood by modern culture. Hemp seeds come from one of humanity's oldest cultivated plants. Ancient people used hemp for rope, textiles, oil, medicine, and food. In many traditional societies, the plant was prized because almost every part of it served human life. The seeds are especially remarkable because they offer protein along with healthy fats in a naturally balanced form. They contain edestin and albumin, proteins that the body can use efficiently, plus omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. There is also magnesium, zinc, and iron packed into those tiny seeds. The reason hemp seeds fell out of favor had little to do with nutrition and a great deal to do with politics, stigma, and cultural confusion. Entire generations were trained to fear the plant rather than understand it. And once fear enters the picture, truth usually leaves the room. At number 4, tofu. Here is another food that modern Western culture often mocks without understanding. Tofu has been a central source of nourishment in East Asia for well over 2,000 years. It was never created to imitate meat. It did not need to. It stood on its own as a deeply practical, versatile, protein-rich food that supported monks, farmers, scholars, and entire communities. Tofu is made from soybeans, and soy contains all the essential amino acids, making it one of the rare plant foods considered a complete protein. It also contains isoflavones, compounds that have been studied extensively for their potential role in supporting metabolic and hormonal health. Yet tofu became controversial in a culture obsessed with macho marketing and misinformation. Instead of being respected as an ancient protein staple, it was dragged into ideological battles, distorted by half-truths, and dismissed by people who had never even learned how to prepare it properly. But history has a way of outlasting bad marketing, and tofu remains one of the smartest protein foods anyone can eat. At number 5, pumpkin seeds. The old healers knew these seeds were special. Across indigenous traditions in the Americas and beyond, pumpkin seeds were used not just as food, but as medicine. They were valued for their dense nourishment and their ability to support vitality. Today we understand that pumpkin seeds bring protein, magnesium, zinc, iron, and beneficial plant sterols. They are compact, portable, and surprisingly powerful. They also contain antioxidants and healthy fats that make them far more than a snack. The modern world overlooked pumpkin seeds for the same reason it overlooks many deeply nourishing foods, because they are too easy. No cartoon mascot, no billion-dollar campaign, no fake health halo needed, just a seed that quietly does the job. At number 6, lentils. This is one of the oldest cultivated foods on Earth, and there is something almost poetic about the fact that such an ancient, unglamorous food remains one of the best protein bargains in existence. Lentils were eaten in the ancient Near East, India, the Mediterranean, and beyond. They have sustained people through scarcity, empire, migration, and everyday life. Science confirms what tradition already knew. Lentils offer substantial protein, fiber, iron, manganese, folate, and polyphenols. They support energy and fullness in a way fast food never can. Lentils were forgotten not because they failed us, but because they do not flatter the modern ego. They are not flashy. They do not scream indulgence. They whisper discipline, resilience, and nourishment. And in a culture addicted to extremes, whispers are often ignored. At number 7, spirulina. If Chlorella opened this countdown with a shock, spirulina drives the point even deeper. This blue-green algae has a long history of use in places like Africa and Mesoamerica, where people harvested it from natural waters and recognized its unusual sustaining power. Modern analysis shows why. Spirulina is incredibly rich in protein by dry weight and contains phycocyanin, a striking blue pigment with antioxidant and anti-inflammatory potential. It also delivers iron, B vitamins, and trace minerals. This is one of those foods that sounds futuristic, even though it is rooted in old human experience. Why did it stay outside the mainstream for so long? Because it did not fit the industrial model of comfort food. It looks unfamiliar, it tastes bold, it requires people to step outside the mental box that says real food must be beige, salty, and processed. Spirulina asks more of us. In return, it gives a lot. At number 8, peanuts. Now, here is a food that has been both adored and underestimated. Technically a legume, peanuts have nourished people in South America for thousands of years before spreading across the world. They provide protein, healthy fats, niacin, vitamin E, and resveratrol-like polyphenols. They are satisfying, versatile, and astonishingly effective at curbing hunger. Yet peanuts got trapped in a strange cultural contradiction. On one hand, peanut butter became a childhood staple. On the other hand, peanuts themselves were often dismissed as cheap, low-status food. But there is nothing low-status about a plant food that can feed millions efficiently and deliver real satiety. What modern culture often misses is that affordability is not a sign of inferiority. Sometimes it is proof that nature gave us something generous. At number 9, quinoa. The Inca called it the mother grain, though technically it is a seed, and they treated it with reverence. That alone should make people pause. Ancient cultures do not preserve foods for centuries without good reason. Quinoa offers complete protein, fiber, magnesium, manganese, and an array of protective phytonutrients. It is one of those rare plant foods that combines lightness with strength. It can fuel without weighing you down. So why was quinoa forgotten outside the Andes for so long? Because the industrial food world does not reward biodiversity and tradition. It rewards monocultures, shelf life, and mass dependence on a narrow range of crops. Quinoa did not disappear because it lacked value. It disappeared because modern food systems often push aside anything that reminds people how rich the old ways really were. At number 10, Edamame. This is the point in the countdown where the message becomes impossible to ignore. Edamame, those young green soybeans, are one of the cleanest examples of plant protein working beautifully in whole food form. They are rich in complete protein, fiber, folate, vitamin K, and isoflavones. In traditional Asian food culture, soy was not some mystery ingredient hidden inside hyper-processed imitation products. It was respected, fermented, boiled, pressed, and eaten in forms people actually recognized. Edamame is almost a symbol of what modern society lost: simplicity. It is just a bean, picked young, cooked and served. Yet it nourishes far better than many engineered protein snacks sold at outrageous prices. If you have been enjoying this countdown so far, take a moment to support the channel because more people need to hear this message. And if you are wondering where to find many of these foods, the truth is that they are more accessible than people think. You can find black beans, lentils, peanuts, pumpkin seeds, tofu, chickpeas, green peas, quinoa and chia seeds in ordinary grocery stores. Others like spirulina, chlorella, nutritional yeast, Sacha Inchi seeds and mycoprotein products may be easier to find in health food shops or trusted online stores. The point is not perfection. The point is to start bringing these foods back into your life one by one, instead of waiting for some miracle product with a celebrity endorsement. At number 11, nutritional yeast. This one surprises people, and that is part of why it belongs right here. Nutritional yeast is not the same as baking yeast, and it is not some strange laboratory invention. It is an inactive yeast long valued for its savory flavor and dense nutrition. It is especially prized among people seeking plant-based protein because it brings amino acids along with B vitamins, and in fortified forms, it can also provide vitamin B12. It has a cheesy, nutty richness that makes it easy to use. Historically, yeasts and fermented foods have been central to human food culture in many forms. What is modern science telling us? That this flaky golden powder delivers protein along with compounds that help make meals more satisfying. Why did the broader culture overlook it? Because it does not fit the script. It is not glamorous. It does not come with dramatic advertising. It just works. At number 12, Sacha Inchi seeds. These seeds come from the Amazon and have been used by indigenous peoples for generations. Sometimes called Inca peanuts, though they are not actually peanuts, they are deeply impressive nutritionally. They offer protein, omega-3 fats, fiber, and antioxidants. There is wisdom in the way traditional cultures treasured concentrated foods from biodiversity-rich regions. They understood that strength comes in many forms, and not all of them graze in a field or roam a feedlot. Sacha Inchi stayed obscure largely because the modern world tends to ignore what indigenous cultures already know until it can be repackaged and sold back to everyone at a premium. That pattern repeats itself again and again. First, the old knowledge is dismissed. Then it is rediscovered by modern branding. Then suddenly it is called innovative. At number 13, chickpeas. Another ancient staple, another quiet giant. Chickpeas were eaten across the Middle East, Mediterranean, and South Asia long before modern diet culture existed. They nourished ordinary people and extraordinary civilizations alike. Today we know they provide protein, fiber, manganese, folate, iron, and beneficial plant compounds like saponins. They support fullness, digestive health, and steady energy. Chickpeas can become stews, flatbreads, hummus, roasted snacks, and flour. That versatility is part of their genius. The reason modern culture underrated chickpeas is because they never needed to pretend to be exciting. They did not need a flashy identity crisis. They fed people well, and that was enough. But now, in an age of metabolic confusion, that reliability looks more revolutionary than ever. At number 14, Seitan. This food has roots in East Asian culinary traditions, especially among Buddhist communities that developed protein-rich meat-free foods long before modern imitation meats became fashionable. Seitan is made from wheat gluten and is exceptionally high in protein. It has a dense, chewy texture that makes it one of the closest plant foods to meat in terms of bite and culinary behavior. But this is not just about texture. Seitan represents a long history of people mastering plant ingredients in sophisticated ways. Ancient cooks were not nutritionally ignorant. They were innovative. Modern science can describe the protein density, But history reminds us that humans have been solving the so-called protein problem for a very long time. Why was seitan overlooked? Because many people in the modern West never encountered it in its proper cultural context. Instead of seeing it as part of a deep culinary lineage, they met it through fragmented trends and half-baked internet arguments. At number 15, Moringa leaves. Now we enter territory that feels almost mythical, and for good reason. Moringa has been called a miracle tree in many parts of the world, especially in Africa and South Asia, where its leaves, pods and seeds have long been used for nourishment and healing. The leaves are rich in protein relative to most leafy greens and come with vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, iron, and plant antioxidants like quercetin and chlorogenic acid. Traditional medicine praised Moringa for energy, resilience, and recovery, and modern research continues exploring its metabolic and anti-inflammatory potential. Why is Moringa not a household staple everywhere? Because industrial agriculture does not prioritize what grows easily in diverse climates while nourishing communities directly. It prioritizes what fits centralized systems of control and profit. Moringa, like many deeply useful plants, empowers local self-reliance. That makes it valuable to people, but not always attractive to large industries. At number 16, amaranth. Here is another sacred ancient food. The Aztecs revered amaranth, and for good reason. It is a resilient pseudo-grain rich in protein, fiber, manganese, magnesium, and iron. It also contains lysine, an amino acid that is often lower in other grains, which makes it especially interesting nutritionally. Amaranth is a survivor. It grows under difficult conditions, adapts well, and offers strength in return. The tragedy is that many ancient crops like this were pushed out by colonial disruption, industrial uniformity, and the false promise that modern refinement was somehow superior to traditional nourishment. Amaranth did not vanish because it was weak. It was sidelined because systems of power often erase foods that symbolize independence and cultural memory. At number 17, green peas. This is one of the most overlooked foods in the modern supermarket, which is almost laughable when you realize how much they offer. Green peas deliver protein, fiber, vitamin C, vitamin K, and an array of protective phytonutrients including lutein and zeaxanthin. They have nourished people across Europe and Asia for centuries. They are mild, accessible, affordable, and versatile. Yet because they are familiar, they get underestimated. Modern consumers are often hypnotized by novelty. They will spend a fortune on exotic powders while ignoring a bag of peas sitting quietly in the freezer. But green peas remind us of an uncomfortable truth for the marketing machine. Real nutrition does not always need reinvention. Sometimes it is already waiting in plain sight. At number 18, tempeh. Fermented, firm, earthy, and deeply satisfying, tempeh is one of the great gifts of Indonesian food culture. It has been made for centuries through the fermentation of soybeans, a process that transforms them into a dense cake, rich in protein and easier to digest for many people. Tempeh brings together complete protein, fiber, minerals and fermentation, which makes it more than just another soy food. Fermentation itself is one of humanity's oldest nutritional technologies. Long before laboratories, traditional cultures understood that microbes could help unlock the power of food. Why has tempeh remained niche in many places? Because fermentation requires patience, and patience is not something modern convenience culture celebrates. But foods that take time often give back far more than foods rushed through factories. At number 19, mycoprotein, fungi protein. This may sound like the most modern item on the list, but in a strange way it circles back to something ancient, humanity's long relationship with fungi. People have used mushrooms and fungal foods for nourishment and medicine for centuries, even if the specific modern category of mycoprotein is newer. Mycoprotein is derived from fungi and is notable for its high protein content and fibrous structure. It also offers fiber and can be highly satisfying. In a world facing real questions about sustainability, land use, and metabolic health, fungi-based foods represent a fascinating bridge between biology and food innovation. The reason people resist them is often psychological. They hear the word fungi and imagine something strange. But what is stranger, really? A food shaped by natural fermentation and biological efficiency, or a system that normalizes ultra-processed meat substitutes on one side and chemically enhanced junk food on the other? And now we arrive at number 20, chia seeds, the ultimate culmination of this entire countdown. These tiny seeds were prized by ancient Mesoamerican civilizations, including the Aztecs, who saw them as a source of endurance and strength. Warriors and messengers reportedly used chia as concentrated fuel, and when you look at the nutritional profile, that legacy makes perfect sense. Chia seeds provide protein, fiber, omega-3 fats, calcium, magnesium, and antioxidants. They absorb liquid, expand, and create a remarkable sense of fullness. They are small, but they embody something massive: the truth that power is not always loud. The modern world overlooked chia for the same reason it overlooked so many foods on this list. They were too natural, too old, too unbranded, too deeply connected to traditions that modern society was taught to dismiss. But now the truth is resurfacing. And maybe that is what this whole list has really been about. Because when you step back and look at these 20 foods in order, the message becomes impossible to miss. Number 1 was chlorella, number 2 black beans, number 3 hemp seeds, number 4 tofu, number 5 pumpkin seeds, number 6 lentils, number 7 spirulina, number 8 peanuts, number 9 quinoa, number 10 edamame, number 11 nutritional yeast, number 12 Sacha Inchi seeds, number 13 chickpeas, number 14 Seitan, number 15 Moringa leaves, number 16 amaranth, number 17 green peas, number 18 tempeh, number 19 mycoprotein, and number 20 chia seeds. 20 plant foods, each one a reminder that humanity never needed to depend so heavily on the narrow modern script of protein coming mostly from meat. That script was sold to people. It was repeated until it sounded like truth. But repetition is not proof. The deeper lesson here is not that every person must eat exactly the same way. It is that nutrition became distorted when people surrendered ancient food wisdom to industrial convenience, aggressive marketing, and a culture that often values profit over vitality. These plant foods are not weak substitutes. They are not consolation prizes. They are real food with real history, real science, and real staying power. Many come bundled with fiber, antioxidants, minerals, and beneficial compounds that meat alone simply does not provide in the same way. That matters. It matters for energy, it matters for satiety, it matters for long-term health. And it matters for anyone who has been told that strength has to look one way. So now I want to hear from you. Which of these 20 plant foods do you already eat? And which one surprised you the most? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you enjoyed this countdown, subscribe to the channel, because there is a whole world of forgotten foods, hidden healing traditions, and nutrition myths we still need to uncover together.